Hey guys, welcome to the Easy Synth Programming Series featuring Syntorial. We are now entering into lesson 2, which involves filters. The chapter is called Brightness. There are a couple things we are going to do. There's a lesson, 2 quizzes, a group challenge, and an on your own. Patrons of Hexspa get access to the on your own portion where we dive deep into Massive and Primer and other synths and really try to expand upon what's being taught here in Syntorial. So with that being said, let's get started. Here we are in Syntorial. Let's watch the first lesson, or I'm going to watch it. So what he was just talking about was this knob right here, which is a big deal. You've heard this in music where, like in Kylie Minogue tracks, whatever, it's like everything's filtered. That's what it is. It's just like a coffee filter where it doesn't let stuff through that you don't want. So it just so happens that the type of filter that we're using here is called a low-pass filter, also known as a high-cut filter, because that's what it does. It low passes. It allows thou shalt not pass is what this thing would be called if it was around in biblical times. So let's take a listen to it. Standard saw wave, right? Now we're starting to get into the subtractive part of subtractive synthesis. So watch this. Oh man, you see something happening but you don't hear, because everything's been filtered out. So let's open it up again. Buzzy. Well, how's it? That's exactly just like a cat. And later on there will be more opportunity to manipulate what this filter is doing, but for now, that's the kind of thing it does. Now let's say you want to play bass. Sorry, we're a little high. That's a cool bass. It almost sounds like the Swedish House Mafia one, but most of the time you don't want it that bright. Maybe you want something like that. Maybe a little brighter. And that's how you do it, okay? But there's one critical, important thing. You need to have a decent full range monitoring setup in order to go through Syntorial, or perhaps some dope headphones. I'm a big advocate for real speakers and acoustic treatment. In case you don't know that by now, you can check my How to Set Up a Listening Room playlist to get more details on how to set up a room correctly, including acoustic treatment placement and room measurement. But for now, here we go. If I have the filter all the way open, there's definitely a lot of high frequencies up there, which remind me of brakes squealing or keys jingling. And if you open up that filter, you rock it back and forth, it's just like a wow. It's very, but just on the highest, buzziest, sizzliest frequencies. I mean, you could argue not even really musical frequencies. I guess they could be in the right context, but there you go. So make sure you have a good monitoring solution. And with that being said, let's get started with whatever comes next. I think it's the challenge. All right, I don't care what he plays 9 times out of 10. I just want to bounce back and forth with the X key from middle C. I'm not hearing that there's been any highness taken out. Let's take a little out and see. With the hidden patch, I can hear a little bit more screaminess in the higher range. And here, that's diminished a little bit. So it's definitely, the filter cutoff is all the way open. That's what you're listening for. If you had the filter cut off all the way open also, it brings the sound forward. Where if you drop it down, it is very, very much more, it's freaking smaller and lower. So here it's very, you know, that's what you're listening for these types of exercises, okay? Yeah! Yep. Obviously very different sound, much more mellow, much more muted. Reminds me of Miles Davis. Kind of a papery mid. And it's not going to affect your lows, okay? So, yeah. Remember, the first ones are easy. Obviously very muted, right? Very muted. I actually think it's here. No, a little more. Okay? You hear the difference there? Where is he? Here we're getting almost none of that mid-range. Here we get some. There, not so much. The cutoff here might be around 120 hertz or so. Here we're still getting some like 400, 300 range into the frequency, okay? So, yeah, we got to make sure we match up. We do. Submit. All right. That one sounds a little bit more open. So where were we before? We were at 40. So I'm going to guess 50, 0.52, whatever that means. It's halfway. And yeah, but you hear us a little bit brighter. You know, use your relative pitch skills. If you hear that the next pitch is a little bit higher, then you don't need to think in absolute values. Like, oh, is it, you know, where is it? It's just a little bit higher than the last one. Okay? Now this is the opposite of the first one. In this second, in my patch, where the filter is already, you know, it's already freaking open. The hidden patches, it doesn't have that high squealiness. Again, try to have some good speakers, or just have some good speakers, man. It'll help you a lot. Don't be doing this headphone game. Yeah, those really high frequencies, if you're not that familiar with listening to mixes, then it might not be that obvious to you. But this is the range that hi-hats are at, the high end of sibilants and voices. Maybe a little bit of snare, maybe a kick, depending on how the track is mixed. Just a little off the top, okay? It's like a guitar player just rolling off the little bit of the tone knob, which try it out if you haven't. You end up with something like this, just something a little bit more cool. Yeah! To me, that struck me as being kind of similar to the halfway one from before. Whoa, too much. And it's okay if you're wrong, you know, just take your time, think about it. Some of these patches that come later, I literally take breaks and come back because it's some of them you're just not going to get right away. But try to compare it to what you thought it might be, you know? You know, and try to listen, what was in there? What wasn't I paying attention to make me think it was the correct answer? This has a lot more body, like around 1K, than this one. That one's pretty freaking muted. Maybe like an octave down, 500. So there you go. Yeah! Yeah! And all right, guys, let's go to the next challenge. What this is about right here is this volume knob, okay, and how it relates to the filter. That's another thing that you're going to need to start to appreciate when it comes to synthesis, and that is often these controls work together. It's not like we just set this and boom, we're done. There's going to be a lot of juggling, just like mixing. So let's give an example. He's emphasizing the lower frequencies. So again, a lot of top end. But if we bring it down, we almost have more of a rock bass sound. And then he was saying you bring it even further and you just have a sub, but it's much quieter because we're taking stuff out. So what you do is you compensate by turning up the volume a little bit, as opposed to so yeah, that's what we're gonna work on right now. Oh, the other thing he was saying is what I already said was, if you are not hearing this, do not be listening on your iPad, even though this does come as an iPad app. Try to run your audio out into, ideally, an acoustically treated room in a good spot that you've already know to have accurate bass. If not, he recommends over-the-ear headphones. Then, if you're going for accuracy, you want open back headphones, okay? You could probably do this on earbuds. You know, I got some Skull Candies. I don't think they're that bad. But, yeah, try to listen for what's going on here, okay? The filter's obviously pretty low here. But like he said, it's quiet because these are higher frequency pitches that he's playing, so our filter's down, but you can't hear it, so see what's going on here? So we started here. His comes a little bit farther forward. This is another reason not to listen on headphones, because you don't have that effect of dimension in the same way, okay? I know, Andrew Sheps mixes on headphones. I don't care. Like, if Andrew, if that's you, is that you? Go ahead, man. Use your tannoys and your headphones. I don't care. But the rest of you guys, try to listen on speakers and appreciate the depth factor that comes with using these filters and in combination with the volume knob. We're sitting on the same plane there. There we go. Just get in the habit of checking at middle C as opposed to higher or lower on the keyboard, because once again later you might run into key tracking and that will mess you up. There you go. Had to turn it up. Yeah! Now that's a fat bass. Okay, I don't want to abuse it. I am in an apartment, but yeah. You can always check right here in the middle. Again, we're listening for the filter, which is not dependent so much on the sub-frequencies. If you turn the filter down enough, that's all there will be left. But you can even hear it, well, maybe not there. Just a little quieter, so, because there's less of the low frequency information there. We just want to make sure that we're getting the same amount of upper harmonics as opposed to this, where the hidden patch has less. So we want to have less. But we also want to make sure our volume is the same. So it starts here, -2. Way too quiet. But his demo patch is a big fat kind of, you know, Temptations, Papa Was a Rolling Stone thing, so try to get it. Yeah! Again, same, but even filtered down lower. Hear that? Take some time and listen through these examples, guys. I'm going quick because I've been through it in, you know, it would be a much longer video, but take the time to play around with as many of these combinations as well as different ranges on the keyboard. Yeah! See, that strikes me as being just below the 1K range, which I think this is about right there. Oh. No, I feel like I'm too quiet. Okay, it was just above. We start here at -2, which is too quiet. But +2 is just right. I think this is more like around the 70 range. Cool, so yeah, not that much filtering, just a little bump on the volume, and you're matched up. Yeah! Yeah! And our quiz section. Which section of the synth determines the brightness of your sound? Let's work through these, guys. Is it unison? You don't even know what that is yet, so he's not going to do that to you. He's not that mean. The amp envelope, you don't know nothing about that either. Although, if you want to get fancy and think about the Fletcher-Munson curve, then maybe that would have an impact. Because a quieter sound is going to have a different range of frequencies. Actually, it would make it brighter to bring it up, because the upper frequencies are only more audible at the highest volumes. So, the oscillator, it also determines the brightness of your sound. But he's not talking about that. This is the problem with being too smart, guys. If you think about it too much, you're going to get messed up. Because if I play a sine wave, that's the dullest sound in the universe. But we want to talk about the low-pass filter. That's what the lesson is. Which control in the low-pass filter section changes your sound's brightness? It's called the cutoff. He probably mentioned that. The waveform is not in the low-pass filter section. That's your oscillator section. Pulse width is also in your oscillator section. The patrons by now will know that, because support me on Patreon to get on the inner circle. We went through this, and once again, the patrons know why. So yeah, pulse width, it can affect brightness, but it's not in the low-pass filter section. The cutoff sounds like it in main volume. Once again, it can change your sound's brightness, but it's not going to be in the low-pass filter section. Filter section, guys. You have to think of a synth as an organism that has different parts. Your oscillator, you could call it the head, and then you got the filter, which is like the body. Then you have it moving around, which could be the legs and the arms. So in the low-pass filter section, you want to start thinking about what side effect occurs when turning the cutoff down to a fairly low setting. Your sound gets freaky. That is right, but I know that if I put that, it's gonna be wrong. It should be right though. It's like multiple, choose all that apply. Your sound gets brighter. It would do that if it wasn't a low-pass filter, if it was a high-pass filter, but we haven't gotten to that yet, and you'll understand that later. And this is why synths can be so confusing. But yeah, your sound gets louder? No. It almost will never get louder, because a filter, right? Unless you have louder resonance, which is like self-oscillating. We'll get into that later too. Your sound gets quiet. Okay? Because again, it's like, you got more frequencies coming out. So it's necessarily quieter. There's less happening at the end. What control can we use to compensate for this unintended decrease in volume? I mean, if something's too quiet, what do? You turn it up. It's too quiet, you turn it. Up the main volume. Yeah! Okay, guys, that was just the explanation of what amounts to be the first group challenge. Yeah, there was no first group challenge, because what's the point? There could have been. In fact, why wasn't there? I don't know. But yeah, now we have not just 3, but in fact 4 variables when it comes to determining exactly what is the hidden patch. So let's just get started. And oh, before we get started, there's one detail, two actually. One, what he says is to listen for what's most obvious. But I would like to rephrase that as listen from the outside in. So yes, listen to what strikes you first, but when you write a song, you start with a, you know, a basic idea. You might come up with a melody like that. Sounds great, kinda, but you're not going to release that on YouTube or SoundCloud because it's not developed yet. But if I listen to your track, I'm only going to hear the end result, and I have to listen for what was that initial idea. They talk about this in Deadmau5's, well, Deadmau5 talks about it. No, it was one of the challenges for like assignments in the Deadmau5 masterclass was try to identify in his tracks what was the initial 8-bar loop. Where was that? It's probably somewhere in the B section, towards you know, the 3/4 way, where everything's happening, and that's the exact same way you do it here. Listen from the outside in. So don't try to listen in for what is the oscillator when there's tons of other stuff in the way. Chip away from the outside. And also the other thing he mentioned was that this filter can affect the intelligibility or the discernibility of these different waveforms. So if we go, for example, like a saw and a narrow pulse, which are already somewhat similar, they sound the exact same. I mean, honestly, like, what if I turn it up a little bit? I mean, honestly, they sound the exact same down there. But if we come a little bit lower, there is a little bit of a difference. It sounds like the saw wave is just a little bit louder. So yeah, pay attention, and let's get started. For what it's worth, when I'm doing these on my own, I like to listen with the mix cube first because the mid-range is where the most important information is. So I don't have to worry about the high highs and the low lows. So in keeping with that tradition, that's where I'm going to start. You start however you want to start. If you don't have a mix cube, that's fine. But that's what I do. Okay, let's get started. Okay, that sounds to me like a narrow pulse, right? That's the first thing that struck me. And the filter's down a little bit, but not that much. Okay, maybe it's not a narrow pulse. Maybe it's a square wave. No, what the hell? Something's wrong here. Okay, it's a medium pulse. Filter is down a little bit. And the volume wasn't changed. But sometimes I like to just touch it a little bit, just to hear if I'm correct, and I think I am. Yeah! Again, there's this try again feature. There's also a hint feature. Like right here, there's a hint feature. This is one of those where through the mix cube it sounds exceedingly similar. So I'm going to kick over to the Yamahas and listen for any top end variation. I think he's got the filter cut off down just one little tiny piece. Because what happens if I turn it up? I'm getting that piercing highness. And here I don't. So, again, good monitoring, guys. It really helps. Okay. And again, check different ranges. I'm checking up high because I know that this is where we really need to pay attention, but I'm also going to listen low, you know, because if down low is where you hear the most difference in your waveforms, right? As opposed to a pulse, as opposed to up high. I mean, yeah, there, but what if I turn it down a little bit? It gets just a little bit more similar. There's enough difference, but anyway, now I don't remember what the patch is. Oh, geez. We're just down one, right? And we're at saw. Okay. Yeah! Alright, that is almost certainly a sawtooth wave. But it's not, though. Because it's not powerful enough. We need to use the pulse. Okay. We can check, but yeah, you can hear the overtones in the medium pulse, and the full square that obviously has the most bass. So listen to everything that you can and make your decision that way. We're as loud as we can go, so that's it. That sounds like a filtered saw to me. But again, maybe it's a neural pulse. You see, sometimes, and this is gonna happen if you stick with me to the end of this entire course, which there is a lot of stuff, sometimes you will get really close. In fact, you will get so close that you really cannot tell the difference between the sounds. But there's just a different combination of elements at play. It does happen. Or this difference is so subtle that it's like you bouncing back and forth, you don't even know. You know, everything just becomes mush even if you do take a break. Or you just flat out don't want to do it anymore. And you will get something wrong. So again, there's always a hint, which if you're absolutely ready to hit submit, sometimes it's better just to hit hint, and save yourself the hassle of getting like a crappy score and going over the whole thing again. I don't know. Yeah! Definitely a narrow pulse. Yeah, I didn't hear a lot of filtering. Oh, but there is. I'm hearing the volume the same. Wait. I was wrong. I was wrong. What? Did I turn down the filter? I'm just really not hearing a ton of difference there. I just didn't expect it, man. Yeah, I don't hear a lot of difference. There is, though. I should have been paying more attention. I was a little bit distracted. I think that's a saw. How do I know it's a saw? It just has a basic kind of saw sound. When you first hear it, you're like, oh, it's buzzy. But saws also kind of have, it sounds retarded, but like a Captain Crunch flavor. But let me be sure. Wait, am I using the mix cube too? No. Yeah. Okay, we did good. Not perfect. We got a final quiz. When setting multiple controls, which ones should you program first? The ones that are most obvious to you. So the controls with the least obvious effect, with the most obvious effect. The biggest ones, they're all the same size. And they don't look at you. So yeah, I would say change the ones that jump out at you as being changes. I really thought that Pulse Wave had a filter on it. It didn't, though. You know, I keep thinking that these things are thin pulses, but I'm almost convinced that this would be a medium now. It has, because it just has so much bass. I think that's a square because it has a lot more bass. Again, good monitoring helps, and the top end is somewhat smooth. It's not narrow like a Pulse, and it doesn't sound Captain Crunchy like I saw. So yeah. I think that's a saw because the Pulse has a different kind of overtone character. Swedish House Mafia with a filter. The only thing we have left is the thin Pulse, but you hear it is a little. It is similar to the saw, but it just has, again, a little bit more of that ducky quality. Cool. So that's it for lesson 2 on the low pass filter. There are other filter types. We will get into that later. I don't know what the On Your Own challenge is. That's going to be for my patrons. So if you go to patreon.com/Hexspa, you can sign up. And I am doing my best to get On Your Own challenges for my patrons up every week to go along with these lessons so you can follow along. And by the time it's all said and done, you'll be where I'm at today or a little ahead or whatever. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them, and subscribe to get more stuff like this. Click the bell notification icon to get a little notification when I do upload. Okay? Peace.